This is the easiest rosemary oil recipe for hair growth. I'll teach you how to make it and how to use it to get the best results. So the first thing I recommend is fresh rosemary, okay? I've been using rosemary for years now. And whenever I compare fresh rosemary versus dry rosemary, fresh always works best. But yes, if you have no access to fresh rosemary, you can go ahead and use dry. But again, if you have fresh, get fresh. You don't have to grow it in your garden like I do. This is actually my mother's garden. You can just go to the grocery store, check in the herb and spice section of your grocery store or a health food store. You will most likely find fresh rosemary. So I start by thoroughly washing it in the sink because I want to get off any kind of dirt. There's no chemicals on it, but if you get it from the store, it could have chemicals. I'm not sure. Maybe go for organic, but this one has no chemicals. But I still like to thoroughly wash it to get off any dirt, any sort of dead leaves that might break off into the oil, just to make sure that it is completely clean. And once that's done, I move it over to a paper towel. You can also move it to a cloth towel as well. And what I like to do is to just suck out as much water as possible. And I start by just rolling it up. And once it's completely rolled up, I just press down to make sure that as much water as possible has been absorbed. For the amount of rosemary you will use will depend on the amount of oil that you're making. Whenever I use fresh rosemary oil, I make a small batch, which is always 30 to 50 mils of oil, which is very little. So you can use about this amount of rosemary. To be honest, there's no specific number. You can just sort of eyeball it. So you can count the stems. You can use a little bit less than this, a little bit more than this. It's all up to you. So I'm going to be measuring a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. You can use any base oil you like. This is the oil I had on hand today, so I'm using olive oil. You can use camellia oil, avocado oil, any kind of thin to medium density oil. I wouldn't suggest full on castor oil because that is too thick, but you can do half and half of a lighter oil and half of the castor oil. So like I said, this is a 1/4 cup. It is about 50 mils, maybe 45 mils. I put this in a glass jar. Yes, this is the part where a lot of people always say, I don't know how to do the double boiler method. It's taking long. So this is a really quick and easy way that you can do. So first of all, I stuff all the rosemary oil into the jar, and I left a little bit of them kind of standing out of the oil simply because it's aesthetically pleasing for the video. But when you're doing it, make sure that all the stems are completely submerged in the oil. If it means cutting it into smaller pieces, you can do that. You can also batter the leaves a little bit to make sure that a little bit more of the juices are extracted. But I prefer to do this to allow the least amount of moisture. So what you're going to do is put it in a bowl of warm water, or let me say sort of hot but not hot enough to burn you to the touch, and then just leave the bottle in there to seep until it is completely cold, so maybe like 2 hours. Now I'm adding my essential oils. Again, this is kind of like my fresh rosemary versus dry rosemary thing. I think it works so much better to combine the rosemary essential oil with the actual fresh rosemary. You can skip this step if you like, but I think it just makes it so much stronger. And now for the nice tingly feeling on my scalp, I always like to add some peppermint oil. If you saw, I only added 1 dropper full of the rosemary oil, and I'm adding 1 dropper full of the peppermint oil as well. You'll see me use 2 droppers because this dropper only seems to fill up about halfway, so it comes to about 1 full dropper or 10 to 15 drops. So once this is done, I close it up, and then I actually like to let this sit again overnight, and I just let it seep overnight. I still keep the stems in. I keep it exactly like this overnight. And then when I'm ready to apply, I go ahead and apply it. But note that at this point, if you really want to use it, just don't take the rosemary out. You can actually use it immediately. And all you need to do is put the dropper and squeeze a little bit out. As you can see, I'm in my bathroom now and I'm showing you how to apply it. You can just squeeze out a couple drops full, oil your scalp, and then leave it to sit overnight. But then the next day, you don't want this to like mold or start to go bad. So it is time to take out all the rosemary stems. So remember, you're only leaving it overnight. So all you have to do is take out all the stems and you're left with an oil looking like this, really nice. And then I just decant it into my bottle. I almost never buy bottles for my oils. I just like to use old skincare bottles. This is an old Estee Lauder night repair serum bottle, and I love it. The dropper is perfect. The glass bottle is perfect because it's a dark brown glass. Dark brown bottles are always the best for preserving oil because it reduces the amount of light that can damage the nutrients, and this oil can actually last for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, depending on how hot and humid the climate is where you live. Just keep it in a cool, dry place. So as you can see, the oil is perfectly ready to use, and this is how I use it. My hair is currently in cornrows, and this is my protective style of choice for the rest of the year. So almost every time you see my hair, yes, it will be in cornrows. So I put a generous amount, but by generous, I just mean that my entire scalp is covered in oil. It comes up to maybe a full tablespoon. And in terms of droppers, I use 2 to 3 droppers for my entire scalp. I generously put this all over my scalp, and then I just work it down to make sure that it's perfectly absorbed into my scalp. As you'll see, I'm not putting it all over my hair. I'm just putting it directly on my scalp, and it feels so good and like tingly. If you want, you can even use this as a hot oil treatment, which means you just warm the oil up a little bit in the same way that we steeped it before by putting it in a bottle or a mug of some warm water to warm the oil. Do not heat it in the microwave or anything like that because that can denature some of the nutrients. So what you want to do is just oil your scalp very well. I only do this once a week now, but you can use this oil up to 3 to 4 times a week. Very lightly. You can even use less than what I'm using. I only use this once a week now, the night before I wash my hair, because I do LED light therapy now and you can't use oil with that device. So I just use other water-based serums, and then I use an oil the night before I wash my hair. If you hate the feeling of oil staying in your hair overnight, you can do this and leave it in your hair for like 2 hours. So when you wake up in the morning, as soon as you wake up, put the oil on your scalp and then just let it sit for like a couple hours, eat your breakfast, and then go do your hair care routine. You will still get amazing benefits. And as you can see right now, I'm doing a scalp massage. Even if you don't want to use this oil or any similar oil, scalp massages are amazing for hair growth, and I feel like they just activate and make any ingredient that you put on your scalp work so much better. So you can do the scalp massage whether you're using this oil, a different oil, a serum. And if you're using oils that are specifically similar to this one that have like rosemary and peppermint and they leave that sort of tingly feeling on your scalp, it will feel so much more tingly on your scalp when you do a scalp massage. And it just feels so relaxing and calming. And that can actually help your hair grow too, because stress is one of the leading causes of hair loss, early graying, shedding, and even death. So do your scalp massages, okay? As you can see, there's almost nothing left on my ends, but whatever's left, I just put it on the ends of my hair. I meant nothing left on my hands. I just put whatever left over on the ends of my hair, and this is my oiling routine. Let me know if you want another easy oil for hair growth. Hit my face on the side of the screen if you didn't subscribe in the beginning, and watch this other video for a more complicated version of this oil. Bye!